The UK will soon decide if it will extradite WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange to the U.S. for charges related to one of the largest leaks of government secrets in American history. Yesterday, Assange's lawyer says he knew this day was coming, and the WikiLeaks editor-in-chief says an extradition would set a dangerous precedent.
I've just been with Mr. Assange in the police cells. He wants to thank all of his supporters for their ongoing support. And he said, "I told you so."
This is a dark day for journalism. As Jennifer said, this sets a precedent. We don't want this to go forward. This has to be averted. The UK government needs to make a full assurance that a journalist will never be extradited to the United States for publishing activity.
Here to discuss the Assange case is trial attorney Abbas Kazerounian. Mr. Kazerounian, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So we have so many questions for you. In your opinion, why did the Ecuadorian embassy stop protecting Assange?
Well, I think it's a very, very interesting question because according to the current president, President Moreno, he was saying that, enough was enough and they could no longer protect Mr. Assange because of his continuous and systematic interference with foreign states' internal affairs. But unfortunately, for Mr. Moreno, or President Moreno, should I say, is that kind of contravenes his own Ecuadorian constitution, because the former president that gave asylum to Mr. Assange, President Correa, said that this was an incredible act by the Ecuadorian government. And he actually stated that it was a violation of the Ecuadorian constitution, and it also violates international refugee law because Mr. Assange was and is an Ecuadorian citizen and an asylum, which is now apparently being revoked. So I think it's an extraordinary act by the Ecuadorian government to do this, and it certainly stinks of back-channel dealings with probably the U.S. and the UK governments.
Can you walk us through it? Let's say the UK decides to extradite Assange. What happens next?
Well, I think if they decide to extradite him, he will probably come to the United States for prosecution. He's been indicted on one count, and I think it was March 8th of last year. He wasn't actually indicted with espionage, but he was indicted with conspiracy to steal military secrets with Chelsea Manning, who actually worked for the armed forces in the United States. And he could face up to 5 years in federal prison.
And if he stays in England, he faces up to a year in prison. What would happen after that year if he stays in the UK?
If he stays in the UK and he's not extradited, at that point he would probably be free, and to stay there. But obviously, if he leaves the UK and wherever he goes to has extradition laws aligned with the United States, he could still be extradited back to the US. I know that Sweden, for example, there were charges against him for sexual assault, which were subsequently dropped. That doesn't mean they can't be, he can't be reinvestigated for those allegations again. But he's still in murky water because the United States does want him, and the United Kingdom being an ally or one of the greatest allies of the United States, it's very likely that he will be extradited.
So in the past, President Trump praised WikiLeaks for the same work that could lead to Assange's extradition. Here's what Mr. Trump had to say about the arrest yesterday.
Do you still love WikiLeaks?
I know nothing about WikiLeaks. It's not my thing. And I know there is something having to do with Julian Assange. I've been seeing what's happened with Assange, and that will be a determination, I would imagine, mostly by the Attorney General, who's doing an excellent job. So he'll be making a determination. I know nothing really about him. It's not my deal in life.
What would you like to see happen? What punishment?
I don't really have any opinion. I know the Attorney General will be involved in that, and he'll make a decision.
He knows nothing about WikiLeaks. Now, Mr. Kazerounian, has the Trump administration had any influence on Assange's arrest?
Well, I think just going back to your former point, I mean, it's unambiguous that in 2016, President Trump said that he loves, quotation marks, WikiLeaks, and now he knows nothing about it. As far as your current question, do they have anything to do with it? Do we know for sure? No, but I don't believe in coincidences. That this took place yesterday, the very same day that President Obama's former general counsel was indicted, and Michael Avenatti was indicted on 36 counts. All three things happening on the same day. Coincidence? Most likely not. So do I think so? Yes. Do I know so? No.
A lot of clarification there. Abbas Kazerounian, an attorney, a trial attorney. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care.